Hello, everyone. Jose and Nick here, back to you from Moneyline MMA. We have another week of exciting fights. We have UFC Fight Night, Arman Tsarukyan versus Mateusz Gamrot. This fight's going to take place at the UFC Apex Center in Las Vegas, Nevada on Saturday, June 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. For the first fight of the night, we're going to have a middleweight bout between Christos versus Rodolfo Vieira. The second fight of the night is going to be a bantamweight bout between Maness versus Umar Nurmagomedov. The third fight of the night is going to be a lightweight bout between Thiago Moisés versus Christos Giagos. The fourth fight of the night is going to be a heavyweight bout between Josh Parisian versus Baudot. And for the co-main event, we're going to have a welterweight bout between fan favorite, number 10 ranked welterweight fighter Magny versus the number 15th Shavkat Rakhmonov. And for the main event, we're going to have a lightweight bout between the number 11th lightweight Arman Tsarukyan versus Mateusz Gamrot.
All right, Jose, for the first fight of the night, UFC Vegas 57. Very excited to see Christos get in the ring against Rodolfo Vieira. We've got Christos as the current favorite, minus 174, with Rodolfo being a plus 136 underdog. This is an interesting middleweight bout that I think has a decent amount of implications on some of the lower ends, maybe of the top 10. These guys are relatively new to the UFC. Christos is 3-0 in his 3 fights so far in the UFC, with all 3 of them being knockout finishes. So he's already quickly building himself up to being a crowd favorite with these knockouts. And Rodolfo, in his own right, has had some insanely exciting fights, with all 4 of his UFC bouts ending in submissions one way or the other, considering he is 3-1. So he was submitted via guillotine choke in the second round by Anthony Hernandez. But otherwise, Rodolfo has been able to finish all of his opponents in the UFC within the distance. So these are 2 guys that have not seen a decision in a total of 7 UFC fights between the 2 of them. And I think this is going to set a standard for an awesome UFC Vegas 57 card. Jose, what are you thinking?
Yeah, Nick, I agree. I truly believe that this is a banger of an opener for the fight night. Christos, I am excited to see his return. This guy, he has a lot of power, and his first 2 fights in the UFC have been nothing but spectacular. Gained that first round KO against Phil Hayes at UFC 268, and that second round TKO against Brendan Allen at UFC Font versus Aldo this past December 2021. He has strong power, and he likes to close. He comes in for kills. He's shown that in his last 2 fights. When he rocks you and he sees you kind of, lighten up a bit, he capitalizes on that and he closes in and he looks for the kill. He is a finisher, and I don't know if this fight's going to make it to the 3 rounds. And Rodolfo Vieira, I mean, this guy, they call him the black belt hunter for a reason. This guy's jiu-jitsu is phenomenal. He has 7 submissions on his record. His last win was via submission rear naked choke. I don't know. Like, this is just an awesome classic striker versus grappler matchup. I think Rodolfo, he will have a reach advantage, but I don't know if he'll have that striking advantage. I can see Chris. He has a high, significant strike rate himself with 7.21s landed per minute. I think he's going to close in that gap and just use his shorter, stocky build to clip and slow Rodolfo down. I don't see Rodolfo being that dominant on the feet against Chris, Nick.
Yeah, same here, really. I've actually got the numbers of 75-inch reach for Christos and 73-inch for Rodolfo. So according to what I'm seeing, Christos actually has that 2-inch reach advantage, although he is 2 inches shorter in height. So there's kind of that 2-inch give and take, and I think that's going to be pretty significant here. Christos has been able to defend all of the takedowns attempted against him in the UFC up to this point. And granted, he's only got 3 fights, so it's not a crazy, standard to set at this point quite yet. But all 3 of the fighters, or I guess outside of Sean Lally, all the fighters that Christos has seen in the UFC have the ability to take people down. Phil Hayes, as you mentioned, has over a 2.2 takedown average per 15 minutes. So we've seen Chris Curtis be able to defend takedowns, maybe not quite from a guy as skilled in that field as Rodolfo, but regardless, I just think Chris Curtis, before Rodolfo is even gonna really be able to scramble and get him to the ground, I think Chris Curtis is just gonna rail in on the shots. Rodolfo's standing game has a lot left to be desired. 2.6 strikes per minute, but absorbing four. I'm just not seeing enough from Rodolfo's stand-up game. And even if he goes in there from the first, strike of the timer and just immediately attempts takedown after takedown, I'm just not convinced that that's going to be enough at this point to stop Chris Curtis. So to me, I'm going to take Chris Curtis. I do want to ride the wave, and say Chris Curtis by KO. He's going to continue that streak. But at this point, I'm really definitely putting Curtis in the parlay, and I'm going to stay away from any decision specific bets on this fight because I do think, the streak's going to end. He's not going to be able to continue to knock out every guy he fights, especially when you start to match up against tough guys like Rodolfo, who will be able to hold him down for some time. It's just a matter of Chris Curtis being able to get back to his feet and just lay in on him. So that being said, I'm going Chris Curtis.
Yeah, Nick, I couldn't agree anymore with you on that. I'm going to have to go Chris Curtis on this as well. He's only 2 years older than Rodolfo. He's 34 while Rodolfo is 32. And within that 2-year difference, I mean, Curtis has 27 more professional fights than Rodolfo. And that being said, he has a lot more experience inside the MMA cage against as opposed to Rodolfo. And I think that that's going to probably show at this fight. So I think he's good enough and experienced enough with that better fighter IQ to get the win, whether it's unanimous decision or capitalizing and putting Rodolfo out via KO or TKO within the first 2.5 rounds. So I will take Chris Curtis on this, like you, as the winner for this fight. And for the next fight of the night, we have a bantamweight bout between Nathan Maness versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar Nurmagomedov is 14-0. He is Khabib's undefeated cousin. He's making a lot of waves right now in the UFC. He's currently riding obviously a 14-fight undefeated streak right now, but 2 of those come from the UFC. While Nate Maness has a pretty impressive 4-fight winning streak right now himself, 3 of those fights being within the UFC. This is going to be an exciting one. Right now, Umar Nurmagomedov is the biggest betting favorite on the card. Right now, he is at a minus 900. I think that puts a lot of disrespect to Nate Maness, Nick. I can't help but think people are downing him that much, and I don't think people are gonna be surprised when they watch the fight how good Nathan Maness really is.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And what's going on here, Jose, too, is that Umar has the name attached to him that is one of the most recognizable names outside of McGregor, I would say, in the UFC at this point. That Nurmagomedov name is huge, and he is the cousin of what most people consider to be the greatest grappler the UFC's ever seen. So that alone just sets a standard, and I think that name, people are like, oh my goodness, it's his cousin. Let's go, let's ride it out, and let's put a lot of money down on him. And so I also wonder if it's as much like people aren't looking at Nate Maness and going, oh, he sucks, this and that. They just don't know who he is. I don't think a lot of these people that are betting on fights, Jose, they don't, it's unfortunate to say, they aren't looking into the fights as much as we are, right? And they aren't listening to shows like ours to give them the information and say, look, Umar is a great fighter, and we're not saying we're not trying to demean him at all in the success he's been able to have in his career, but we have to accredit Nate Maness for what he's been able to do in his career as well. I mean, he's 3-0 in the UFC, and they have not been giving him softball fighters. I was very impressed with his win against Tony Gravely in the second round. And the fact that he was able to submit Luke Sanders as well in the second round. I mean, he's not one of the guys that's amazing at one individual thing. He does absorb a lot of strikes, 4.7 strikes absorbed and only given 2.8. That's a lot of beating to kind of take, but so far in the UFC, he's been able to manage that. And even in the decision when he got against Johnny Munoz in his UFC debut, he was able to get a takedown and use some of his grappling skills. Even though Johnny Munoz had almost 10 minutes of ground control, he was still able to win that fight. So I'm just looking at a guy who has experienced good grapplers, who has experienced some pretty top end UFC competition and done well in those moments. I also think it's fascinating that, Umar has that 3-inch reach disadvantage here. And granted, Umar has over 7.5 takedowns averaged per 15 minutes, which is just wild. Of course, that only accounts for his 2 UFC fights in specific, but wow, that is one of the highest numbers you're going to see. And to me, it shows that he's just really shooting and shooting and shooting for those takedowns over and over again. I really like Nate Maness's odds with the 86% takedown defense and the ability that he's already shown in the past that he can get taken down and still be successful on his back and in other advantageous situations on the ground. So I for sure can say that there is no chance I am doing anything betting wise on this fight with Umar being a minus 900 favorite. I mean, there's just no value to be had there, Jose. That's for sure.
Yeah, Nick, I'm that's right on with what you said. It's crazy. Umar Nurmagomedov, I don't think he's going to steamroll Nathan Maness at all. They both have 14 wins, on paper, and just that's it. Nathan Maness, he has that one loss, that KO, like that leg. He took a strong kick to the body. That being said, you know, he's done a lot of learning from that, and he's racked up a first round KO and got himself in the UFC. He's proven he can win in the UFC via unanimous decision. He's proven in the UFC he can get a rear naked choke, and he's proven in the UFC he can get a TKO within the first 2.5 rounds. So he is not going to be an easy fight to judge against, and if it comes down to a decision, it's going to be a split decision, and I just don't know as well who this go to. Maybe it would lean towards Umar Nurmagomedov again, based off just I don't know how the judges are really going to be that night. This is a scary fight. Umar Nurmagomedov is really going to have to close that distance and pretty much just inflict his will on Nathan Maness and ground and pound him and hold him down. But like you said, Nathan Maness, the 3 fights he's had in the UFC, he's proven to have 86% takedown defense, like you mentioned, and he has his own takedown. He has 75% takedown accuracy as well. So he's probably not going to be afraid to kind of, give a little pushback as well and put the pressure on. I think on paper, this may be Umar Nurmagomedov's toughest opponent yet. And yeah, this would be a fight where I would recommend, if people don't want to bet on it, don't get too caught up on this hype train of the minus, of the for the underdog in this fight. There's that minus 900 again. Like I just think it's just more hype than what really people have, not really done their deep homework and looking into this fight, like you mentioned, Nick. So this one, it is a tough one for me. But if I'm gonna choose a fighter, it is gonna be Umar Nurmagomedov, because at the end of the day, if I were to put my money out like that, it's gonna be under Umar Nurmagomedov. But again, it's not gonna be an easygoing fight. So I don't blame people for making the same decision as you, Nick.
Certainly, Jose. I'm honestly going to go so far as to say that I will pick Nate Maness to win this fight. I think it's going to be tough for the both of them, and I think obviously it's going to be the toughest match each one has seen in the octagon. But I'm really confident that this is going to be probably the fight of the night. I wouldn't, I don't know. It's going to be tough. These guys are really in for it, and I think they both know it. So I will take Nate Maness as the underdog win here, but I am not going to be betting on that. I don't think. Maybe I'll put a couple dollars down to spare for that plus 520 on the money line, because it's hard to look away from making $5 to 1. But I'm certainly not putting that much weight in it, and I doubt it will make it to our betting portion.
You guys heard it, both Nick and I. Well, Nick for Nate Maness and I for Umar Nurmagomedov.
For the third fight of the night, we're looking at Thiago Moisés versus Christos Giagos. Thiago coming in with the minus 250 money line favorite, and the underdog plus 190. Christos. This is a lightweight bout between two guys who have been in the UFC for at least 9 fights. Christos himself has had 2 bouts, 2 different, he was in the UFC back in 2014, 2015, left the UFC and came back in 2018, and he's kind of struggled so far really in both instances. Both of those debuts ended up in losses against some pretty big names. So it is fascinating to see him fight guys like Gilbert Burns, Charles Oliveira, and now he's getting recently he fought against the guy who was the main event of this fight, Tsarukyan. So that being said, it'll be interesting. This guy's really trying to keep his UFC career alive. And Thiago, on the other hand, is more of a young fighter. He's 27. He's already got a lot of experience, having fought guys like Beneil Dariush, Damir Ismagulov, who's now going to be a challenger in most people's eyes, Michael Johnson, a seasoned veteran, Islam, who's also another prodigy coming up in the division. So being 27 years old, I would say Thiago has a significant amount of experience at this point. So it's going to be fascinating to see how he can learn from his shortcomings in the octagon when he got choked out by Islam, when he got TKO'd by Joel Alvarez last year. So, oh man, we'll see. Either way, these guys both really need a win at this point, coming off of losses, and they're looking to start a win streak of their own. And I don't know, Jose, this will be fascinating to watch. I don't know if it's going to be quite as hyped as Umar's fight just because of the name situation there, but I don't think this is one to really sleep on either. I think both of these guys are going to come in ready to swing it.
Yeah, Nick, I totally agree with you on this one. This is a fight between just two UFC vets, just trying to find out their place right now within the lightweight division. Thiago Moisés, I can see why he's the betting favorite, even though he is running off 2-fight losing streak. And again, those 2 fights, to Joel Alvarez and Islam Makhachev, I mean, he got submitted in the 4th round against Islam, and then he got first round TKO. From there, I do think those are some red flags, and I don't know if people should. I'm surprised that the spread wasn't closer than what it was, but that being said, I just think that he is good, but he definitely got impressive experience against wins over Alexander Hernandez, Bobby Green, and Michael Johnson, like you mentioned. But it does seem when he comes against those bigger names like Beneil Dariush, Islam, and Joel, he starts kind of he doesn't perform and live up to expectations. While Christos Giagos, he's in his middle of his 2nd UFC run, and it just this guy, as you said, he's had experience against Charles Oliveira and Gilbert Burns. Both of those guys are the ones that welcomed him into the UFC for both his stunts, and no question, like that, those are not the best UFC intros. Those are the toughest of the tough to be tested against. And his last loss, a 1st round TKO against Arman Tsarukyan. Yeah, this one, it doesn't say much to me as the viewer or the lightweight division. Christos Giagos, I do think he has stronger not power to put lights out at any moment. He does have a 58% finish rate, and he has 7 knockouts and 4 submissions and 8 decisions. This guy, they're both well-rounded fighters, and this could actually go either way, in my opinion. But I will go with the younger fighter, Thiago Moisés, for this one. That being said, he is riding off a 2-fight losing streak, but I think the level of competition he's gone against it's comparable to Giagos, but I think that his style is going to win this. I have Thiago Moisés winning this. I just have it by decision, to be honest. I don't know if this is going to be ended within the 3 rounds.
Yeah, Jose, actually, I wholeheartedly agree with that choice by decision. I was actually going to make a note that I see Thiago Moises' style as more of a slow, methodical style. If you watch some of his previous fights, it looks like he kind of goes in there and he likes to read and analyze his opponent a little bit, and he's not just going to go out there and swing and swing and get 100 200 strikes in a round. He's just looking to kind of analyze and make his calculated moves as he sees them open up. You can see in multiple of his wins and multiple of his losses, I mean, he landed 1 strike against Michael Johnson, and it was a 2nd round ankle lock win. I mean, it's just one of those interesting scenarios where he likes to kind of sit back and read and react. And I think it's a similar scenario with Christos. I think he doesn't like to throw heavy volume. So I see this being as a very slow and methodical fight. I don't think it's going to be two dudes just absolutely swinging and banging like Derek Lewis would say, making each other bleed, hematomas left and right. I think this is going to be much more calculated. Two guys that know that their careers are needing to be turned around at this point, and boom, we're gonna see guys that are ready to have a technical, in their mind, perfect fight. So I think it goes to decision as well. I lean Thiago Moisés. I think he's got the advantage on the ground. Like you said, they're both pretty well-rounded fighters, but when it does hit the ground, which Christos actually has the higher takedown average, but in that case, I still think Thiago will have the advantage grappling wise. So give me Thiago Moises, and yeah, I'll take it by decision if I have to. But in all likelihood, he'll be on the parlay.
You guys heard it there. Both Nick and I, for Thiago Moises, unanimous decision. And now for the next fight of the night, we have a heavyweight bout between Josh Parisian versus Alan Baudot. Right now, Alan Baudot is the betting favorite at minus 120, while Josh Parisian is the underdog at minus 104. Right now, we're looking at two heavyweights. Both have high finish rates, but are coming off losses. Right now, Josh Parisian is coming off a loss to Dante Mayas, while Alan Baudot is coming off a couple of wins. While Alan Baudot is coming off a couple of losses to Tom Aspinall and Parker Porter, as well as a no contest to Rodrigo Nascimento. These fights, this is just one for them to establish themselves in the UFC division. It's not really for a top 10 or top 15 position. It's really just to kind of get some wins racking up so they can actually find a home within the top 15. This is going to be a fun one. You have two guys that can finish the fight. It's the heavyweights. You know they're going to come in with heavy hits. Don't expect this to make it all 3 rounds. And if we do see this to the end of the 3 rounds, it's going to be a very slow slugfest, I believe, especially in that 3rd round. What are your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think both of these guys are going to at least come in and definitely be swinging a decent amount. They both have at least a respectable 4.9 or higher strikes landed a minute. So I think they both know what's at stake here. And I mean, they're pretty sized match wise. 6'3" and 6'4", both have 79-inch reaches. This is definitely one of those fights where it seems like both of these guys are almost like identical styles and sizes. I mean, neither one of these guys are looking to take it to the ground. I do think there's going to be a feel out process without a doubt that goes on in the first round, maybe. Both these guys have fought Parker Porter and lost. And that's just, it's interesting because, like, I think their careers are going to kind of also follow a similar path. So they're both struggling. I mean, Baudot has been close, but he has been unsuccessful in all of his UFC fights. He was able to have a good first round against Rodrigo Nascimento, but then in the second round, Rodrigo just turned it around and just kind of got him, Alan Baudot, up to the fence and just wailed on him, and ended up getting the TKO that later got overturned, just for a drug test failure. But regardless, it just kind of showed that Baudot has ability to put pressure on. He has the ability to make some damage happen, and he won that first round of that fight for sure. But things quickly turned on him, and he wasn't able to recover. So if Josh Parisian is able to kind of hop on him, get him dazed, get him up against the fence, and just keep swinging, he might be able to do a similar outcome to what Nascimento was able to against him.
Yeah, Nick. Alan Baudot is going to be no strong feat for Josh Parisian. Josh Parisian, he is the younger fighter, and he does have more experience than Alan Baudot. And when I look at Alan Baudet's record, though he does have impressive 7 KO/TKOs, a majority of them came way before he was in the UFC. As you can see, his first like 7 to 8 fights, 9, all were just quick within the first few rounds, except for his third fight. He had a TKO in the fifth round. Uh, a lot of these finishes came way before he was in the UFC, and then next thing you know, he starts going against tougher competition. Tom Espinal, finished him in the first round. I think Josh Persian may have a higher fight IQ, and he does at least have submission wins on his record too. So Josh Persian, he's shown that he doesn't always have to rely on his hands to get the win. He can rely on some of his submission grappling skills, and though he hasn't had those submission wins in the UFC yet, he again, it is something within his arsenal, and then and if he needs to dig deep, I think that can be a path to victory. Alan Bade does have a 75% takedown defense, so I don't know if Josh Parisian is going to be actually attempting any takedowns. He does have 11% takedown accuracy. I think it's mostly just going to come off him heavy swinging and again just putting some pressure on Alan Bade, and then it's going to be a swing fest for sure. And I think when he starts landing and clipping Alan Bade, that's when he's going to start looking to go for a submission. Is when he starts tiring Alan Bade out through his heavy hands. I think he's probably going to use it to help him set up a submission. I just think that when you look at someone Alan Bade, he's someone who is extremely dangerous on the feet, and you can look at this almost like a Francis Ngannou when he was first entered the UFC. I think Josh Parisian should treat Almade like such and pretty much press forward and don't try to take him down right away, but wear and tear him and break him down, and then look for the submission wins, or at least try to show superior grappling game enough to get control time and win. That being said, I will have to go with the more mature fighter for this fight in terms of fight IQ maturity, and that's Josh Parisian. I think he's good. I think he's smart enough and good enough to do what it takes to get the win, whether it's with KO, TKO, or submission. And that being said, again, this could drag out and it can be a slow fight, and we can see two tired fighters in the third round. But again, I think he would do enough to nudge that win. So for this fight, I'm gonna have to go with Josh Parisian.
Sure, yeah. I guess if I had to take a pick, I'll go with Baudot here. I think he's gotten some tough matchups. His UFC debut against Tom Aspinall is just not really fair, to be honest. Give me Baudot, honestly. All right, Jose. For the co-main event of UFC Vegas 57, I think this is honestly the fight I'm looking forward to the most. Shavkat Rakhmonov fighting Neil Magny. Shavkat, the young up-and-coming guy, at minus 400. Pretty large favorite in this card. Neil Magny at plus 285, which is wild to see such a grizzled, respected, talented UFC veteran, top 10 welterweight fighter. I mean, Neil Magny has established his name in the UFC. He's beaten guys like Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit. And honestly, he's just been around for so long. Kelvin Gastelum back in 2015. I mean, this guy's been in the UFC for what feels like ages at this point. And he continues to dominate in the ring. He has lost against Michael Chiesa in 2021 and Santiago Ponzinibbio in 2018. Those are some tough guys. RDA has beat him back in 2017. Those are tough dudes. He only loses against the top end fighters. But of course, Shavkat himself wouldn't be a minus 400 favorite if he didn't have a lot going for him as well. All three of his UFC fights against Alex Oliveira, Michael Prazeres, and Carlston Harris have ended early, if not the latest ending actually being before the halfway point in the second round. I mean, Shavkat is just dominating. 2 submission in those 3 wins, and then 1 with a spinning kick KO against Carlston Harris. This guy knows how to go in the ring and dominate in quick fashion. I mean, this fight against Carlston Harris happened in February, so it's been 4 months and 15 days since the day of recording. It'll be 20 days since the fight day that he's been in the ring. So this guy is just continuing to come in and put the work in. He doesn't even take much damage by these guys, and he's just doing what he does best. So it's totally understandable to see why we're looking at a minus 400 favorite here, Jose. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Nick, I'm extremely excited to see Shavkat make his UFC return. This guy, I've been watching him since he first came to the UFC, and I then I was thinking like, we may have another Khabib on our hands, but it seems like a lot of them are coming up from that part of the region these days. You have Shemaev as well coming out in the same division as Shavkat at welterweight, and that'd be a fun matchup to see later down the road. Neil Magny that. Shemaev was someone he really wanted. So it's no surprise that he took Shavkat in this case. Neil Magny is really wants just to prove that he's not afraid of these new up and comers, and he just really wants to cement himself and really make a title run as he's been racking up those wins. But yeah, my biggest concern was last time I remember we did bet for Neil Magny to get the win, and I just remember seeing his split decision win against Max Griffin. I remember that was one that I was kind of sweaty on. I could have seen it going the other way to Max Griffin as well. He did great against Jeff Neal, getting that unanimous decision win. And just overall, yeah, he only has one loss out of his last 6 fights, and that's to Michael Chiesa, which is you know, that's no easy challenge for sure. Michael Chiesa is a really good welterweight within himself. But before that, he had a win over the former champion Robbie Lawler. But this again, he had a unanimous decision win, which is really impressive. But that Robbie Lawler is not the same Robbie Lawler that we saw years ago when he won the championship against Johnny Hendricks, and who fought Rory McDonald. This is a different Robbie Lawler. So the wins are nice, and he's getting wins where I think he should be getting wins. And this is a fight where I just don't know. Seeing how his last fight against Max Griffin was, how close that was, I don't know if Neil Magny will be able to really impose his veteran dominance over Shavkat. Shavkat is just too impressive, too good. He has 100% finish rate. Uh, 8 of his wins are via KO/TKO, while 7 are by submission. Neil Magny, out of his long 26-8 career, he actually holds just a 27% finish rate. He's smart enough to get the win when he needs to and drag it out and rack up points. He definitely has a height and reach advantage over most of his opponents in the welterweight division. So he always does use his fight IQ to kind of help him with that. But Shavkat himself has strong fight IQ, and he's too fast, too quick, and explosive. And just overall, I think he's just too lethal. He's really good, and I do think that Shavkat deserves to be in the top 10. So I can see why the spread is the way it is, even though Neil Magny's a lot more experienced than Shavkat. Shavkat is going to be making big waves, I think, in the UFC very soon, and that's this fighter is going to be someone I'm excited to see go against the bigger names. So he needs to get past this test in Neil Magny, and if he does, he's going to start going against those top other guys. Maybe we can see him against Gilbert Burns. That'd be fun. So Shavkat, he has phenomenal striking that it can, keep up well with Neil Magny. So again, I don't even think he has to really rely much on his wrestling or takedowns at all for this fight. Just for how little he's been, he has 100% takedown defense. So Magny's not going to take him down, and he himself throws 2.94 strikes per minute. Neil Magny has a higher striking rate, but I do see Shavkat coming in guns blazing with this one and getting the win in any way he wants, even a decision win. But given his high 100% finish rate, we can see this ending early via submission or KO or TKO. But again, Neil Magny being the vet he is, we can also see Shavkat winning via unanimous decision for the first time in his career.
Sure, yeah. I don't know, man. I've got a pretty high amount of faith in Shavkat here. I think he really has the advantage on the ground, which is something Neil Magny does like to utilize depending on the opponent he's fighting against. He's got a few submission wins under his belt. He does like to go to the ground and get it. I mean, arguably the takedown is what really was able to help get him the split decision win against Max Griffin. Because without that takedown, I mean, I don't think he gets that win. So if that's what he's thinking he's going to be able to rely on against Shavkat, he is in for a big and brutal loss, because Shavkat will get on his back and will very quickly submit him. So to me, if Neil is going to go into this fight with the proper game plan, it's going to be to use his experience and to strike and to stay on his feet. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage and a 2-inch height advantage. If he can utilize that and stay his distance, protect against takedowns, I think that's going to be the Haitian sensation's best chance. But that's not something I'm putting my money on. Shavkat's going to be in the parlay. We're going to be betting Shavkat for sure. This is a guy that is going to be making a challenge, a run to challenge the title belt in this division, if you ask me.
Yeah, Nick. And that being said, yeah, I got Shavkat winning this. I got Shavkat just winning this within the 2.5 rounds. Or again, I just wouldn't be surprised if it was unanimous decision. So you can put me down for Shavkat for this one. And now for the main event of the UFC Fight Night, we have the lightweight bout between Arman Tsarukyan versus Mateusz Gamrot. Right now, Arman is the betting favorite at -290, while Mateusz Gamrot is the betting underdog at +215. Right now, Arman is riding a 5-fight win streak. And you know what? He's got, since his loss to Islam Makhachev back at UFC Fight Night 149, he's got 3 unanimous decision wins, proving, he has strong fight intelligence to drag this all the way. And then he decides to say, you know what? No, I'm going to start ending this early, getting 2 consecutive TKOs, one in the first round against Christos Giagos, and the other one in the second round against Joe Alvarez. While on the other hand, you have Mateusz Gamrot. He himself is coming off 3 spectacular wins in the UFC, having a second round KO to Scott Holtzman. And then he also has a first round submission win via Kimura against Jeremy Stevens. And then he also has a TKO in the second round against Thiago Vieira. These guys have lately been turning it up, have decided no longer to make the decision and decided to become finishers, Nick. I'm excited for this lightweight bout. A lot of people can argue Mateusz Gamrot can be undefeated as well. His loss being split decision, if he could have done a bit more, if it would have been judged differently, you could be looking at a 21-0 fighter right now as well. What are your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I think you make some great points. We got 2 guys who have pretty much explicitly stated lately, like you said, they're going to be ending these fights early within the first half of these fights. All 5 combined of these guys' last 5 fights has ended in the first half. This is just crazy to see these guys come in here and get knockout after knockout. They both have the ability to get the knockouts and dominate on the ground. So it's going to be fascinating, Jose, to see 2 guys with similar skill sets as well, with crazy abilities to get knockouts and submissions.
Yeah, you're looking at Mateusz Gamrot with 7 KOs and 5 submissions. At the same time, you're looking at Arman Tsarukyan with 7 KOs and 5 submissions. Yeah, these guys are but dead even when it comes to that and the finishing. Both are experienced right now and both have tough losses. I can't help but notice that I think for Arman to really get that edge win over this, I think he's really going to need to step it up and utilize some more wrestling. Mateusz Gamrot, he is no joke though as well. He himself, they both have high strike rates. On paper, Richard, a lot of statistics, these guys are almost the same. These Arman has 3.75 strikes landed per minute, while Gamrot has 3.79. These guys are gonna be throwing a volume of punches. Gamrot has a higher takedown advantage as well, but guess what? Arman has a 78% takedown defense, and Mateusz has a 100% takedown defense as well. So this is going to be a great, fun, explosive battle, almost something maybe like a Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira type of fight. Just something where it's going to be high pace, back and forth going. This is going to be an exciting one, Nick.
Without a doubt, Jose, I was excited to see Mateusz was training or is training. He's got that American top team blood. Getting in 5 round sparring sessions with Dustin Poirier and Jorge Masvidal. Very exciting to see Mateusz really working on that striking aspect of his game because, as you mentioned, the fact that you mentioned Arman potentially needing to bring it to the ground and do a better job of grappling and win this fight. And if that's the case, I think he's in for a tough one. I think Mateusz wins on the ground. That's just my opinion, of course, but we've seen him get the Kimura sub against Jeremy Stevens. It almost looked easy at that point. And if that's any indication of what this guy's capabilities are on the ground, you do not want to be trying for takedowns. And I can agree that Armand's ability is also pretty impressive. So it would be one to watch to see some of the top end talents grapple on the ground together if it does get to the ground. But if so, I'll take Mateusz. I think this is one great spot for an underdog here, Jose. They both really match up well, and I think it's going to be a great 5 round fight. But I really am leaning to the underdog here. I think with this improved skill in the striking game, if he can put that together with his high end takedown averages, I mean, there's no way he doesn't get on the back of Arman Tsarukyan and make him worry for his neck.
Yeah, Nick, that's a great pick you have there. I, on the other hand, I'm going to go with the younger fighter here. I'm going to go with the 25-year-old Arman Sarukian. The reason being is, he's a rising star himself, but he's younger and he's already at the level where Mateusz Gamrot is at in terms of they're both again like their styles, their records, and their matchup stylistically is very similar, and it's going to be a pretty equal matchup. This is you have like the number 11th versus the number 12th guy, and the advantage I see Sarukian having is a 2-inch reach advantage over Gamrot. I think that just is going to play a little advantage in terms when it comes to the striking. But overall, I mean, this 25-year-old has 8 pro wins and 2 losses, and he has a 67% finish rate. He's he, I'm gonna have to lean with the younger guy here. I think Sarukian has a bright future in the UFC, and it's just crazy because he's in the lightweight division, and I'm excited to see him get more experience and start going against those guys in the top 10. And this fight has a lot of implications for that. A win right here could, help these guys break the top 10 and really start giving them the challenges they should be seeing moving forward now. Um, that being said, yeah, for this one, I am gonna go with the younger fighter. Nothing against Gamera. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I do think this guy probably should be undefeated right now. The dude is scary. And the fact that he's even the underdog is crazy too. Arman, I just personally, whether he was the favorite or the underdog in this, I personally would go with the younger fighter here, even though he does have the couple of losses on his record. But again, when you're talking about Islam, I think Gamrot is going to lose to Islam any day. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of like he would lose to him on any given day as well. And the other loss he has was in the first round. It was via KO, and that was his second professional fight ever. He's done a lot of growing since, and even again since that Islam fight, he's showing a lot of growing. He made it to 3 rounds with Islam, and I think he can make it 3 rounds with Gamrot as well. And I with the finish rate, I again he could finish Gamrot, but this could be a fight that would go to decision. So I think Armand is gonna get. I'm gonna go with him with the slight edge over this, winning via this unanimous decision over Gamrot.
Fair enough, Jose. I can totally see either side with this fight. Like I recognize both of these guys have insane talents and long futures coming up in the UFC. I'm very excited to watch both of these guys' careers develop, but I'm still going to be disagreeing. I'm going to go with the underdog, Mateusz Gamrot. And welcome to the betting portion of UFC Fight Night Tsarukyan versus Gamrot, happening on June 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Jose and I are bringing to you our best bets for this card. before we get into the thick of things, please remember to follow us on Twitter at Moneyline MMA and give us a subscription on YouTube as well. And we're going to continue to let out weekly videos with every fight card that the UFC is putting out. And we've been on a pretty hot streak lately betting wise. So feel free to jump on and continue winning money with us. That being said, our first best bet of the day is going to be Chris Curtis money line. That's one guy that both Jose and I agreed on. That fight will open the main event, and Rodolfo Vieira is a very good fighter, but Chris Curtis I think is just going to be a little too much in the striking department for him. Take Chris Curtis money line. The second best bet of the week is going to be potentially, depending on whose side you take between Jose and I's disagreement on Umar Nurmagomedov versus Nate Maness. Jose had taken the favorite with a little reservations on the heavy spread as he was minus 850, went to minus 900, and is kind of fallen back down to minus 850. But in any case, Jose does understand that that is a very steep number to take anyone at, much less a guy fighting someone as good as Nate Maness. So if you take my side, or if you can at least agree that there is some value to be had there, definitely take that Nate Maness bet. You can find that at plus 450, maybe even as much as 475 or 500 later in the week as the fight gets closer. The third best bet of the week is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov by KO. Obviously, we're big fans of Neil Magny here at Moneyline MMA, but we're just looking to be honest and give you guys the right picks to make to win this money. And in this case, Neil Magny will fall short. I think there is a potential for submission here, but in the end, if Neil Magny is going to play this fight how I think he should with his strengths, this is going to be on the standing game, and Shavkat's going to have to find either another crazy spinning kick or something along those lines to get the KO win. That being said, Jose and I's lock of the week will be following the same suit with the co-main event as Shavkat Rakhmonov. We routinely do not pick the biggest favorites for these lock picks, and obviously in this case, Nurmagomedov being the biggest favorite on this card, and neither of us even agreed that he will be able to take out Nick Maness. So we're going to go with Shavkat as the lock of the week, and the underdog of the week is not necessarily one that both Jose and I could agree on. As the two underdogs we did take, we disagreed on those fights, but Jose could agree that in the end, the underdog with the highest chance of coming out successful on June 25th would be Mateusz Gamrot. We just think that as good as Tsarukyan is, Gamrot has the skills and ability to match him in each department of the fighting game, whether it's stand up or on the ground. So no matter what, that's going to be an electric fight, and we think Gamrot has the best chance as an underdog to be victorious. So Mateusz Gamrot, underdog of the week, which brings us into one of my favorites, the parlay section. We're going to combine a couple of the best bets together to make a 3 and 4 leg parlay for you guys to just maximize returns. As obviously taking Chris Curtis money line, all as much as a great bet as that is, you're only going to find that minus 175, minus 160, and that's not quite as much of a winning as you might want to see from some of these parlays. So instead of just maybe taking one individual bet money line, go ahead and combine Shavkat plus Thiago Moisés plus Chris Curtis for a very simple but strong 3-leg parlay that will hit for plus 178. By just combining a couple of extra favorites on those parlays, you're able to get almost plus 200 returns. I think that's a great return and a very easy, straightforward bet to make. If you're feeling a little bit more risky, depending on who your side is for that main event, whether you take Jose's side with Tsarukyan or you take my side with Mateusz, we're gonna put Mateusz on the parlay and the higher, more risk parlay. If you guys take my side and you think Mateusz is going to be victorious, this is a parlay that you really want to consider putting at least a couple dollars on. By no means do you put your top dollar on this parlay, but you can add in Mateusz to the previous Shavkat, Moisés, and Curtis parlay to get plus 777 returns. And I think that's one of the better parlays you're going to get for that high of a return in fight betting, period. So I would heavily consider putting a couple of dollars down on that, heavily consider betting potentially Gamrot winning that fight outright. Like I said, depending on whose side you take between Jose and I. But in the end, those are going to be our best bets and parlays for this week. Again, please remember to follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, and we will definitely be seeing you guys again next week for what will be the UFC event starting out July. Have a good week.